All right. Hello there, Emily.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We have Emily Kyle here, who is an incredible person and nutritionist and expert in cannabis. And I'll let you do the full explanation there. And I'm Bryan D'Alessandro, co-founder and CEO of Eaton Hemp. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. We're going to kind of just, hang for another minute or two to just let some other folks jump on in. But yeah, Emily, if you want to give a little intro.
Absolutely. So my name is Emily Kyle. I live in Rochester, New York, so not too far from you. And I originally started my career as a registered dietitian nutritionist and had worked in hospitals and done clinical. And over time, our culture has changed and my interests have changed, and it kind of just seemed like the perfect time to incorporate cannabis counseling into my work. And now I pretty much do full-time cannabis education.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I think let's give like another minute or two, and then I'd love to hear a little more in depth around your story of how
Okay.
you
Awesome.
got where you are. Yeah, because you seem to wear so many hats and have gotten trained in so many different modalities, and you're also an author, so a lot going on there.
Yeah, I definitely feel like as you grow older, you realize that you have multi passions or multi-passionate, lots of different things, and it's an exciting time to be in the wellness space, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of change, and I'm sure you're seeing the same. But through this whole terrible pandemic, there's a completely different relationship people are having to their own health and to each other. So I think
Definitely.
there's a big opportunity here.
Definitely. People are really starting to take their health seriously, whereas I feel like maybe before it wasn't as serious as it really is now.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that paired with the fact that people are at home more with their family, we're and I'd love to get more into this as we go deeper into the talk. But I think we're so busy nowadays often, and it's just not serving us. It's not serving our stress and our anxiety and our immune health. So I think
Definitely.
this is really offering a recalibration of sorts.
I think so. I definitely think so.
Great. Well, I say let's jump on into it. Others will join as we're going, but thanks again for everyone who's here. Just a couple of like housekeeping notes. There's a chat function on the side, so feel free to check on in. Hi from Westchester. Hi from Mesquite. Yes, love it. We got some people checking in from all over. So yeah, keep on chiming in and throw your questions in there. We'll start to answer some questions as we get into it, and we'll come back to them as well. And then we have some other folks in the background who might respond to you with some answers if we don't get to them here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's jump on into it. We're here today to really talk about how CBD can help to manage anxiety, pain, and inflammation. But let's start. I think CBD is kind of that's after the fact. Why don't we start by talking about some of these elements that so many people are suffering from? Emily, I'm sure you see some commonalities with a lot of your patients.
Definitely, especially when we see anxiety, inflammation, and pain all coming together, it can really become this unfortunate ball of wax. But again, like you mentioned, the pandemic, anxiety is increasing for everybody. And so many people are just desperate for a different option. And I think that's why people are so excited about CBD, is because these problems are not getting better, they're getting worse. And when we think of an all-natural solution, it seems logical that it's a great first place to start.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting also in that a lot of the more natural solutions, they're not as maybe aggressive is the right word as traditional medicine. And I'm not saying that we should stay away from traditional medicine or not use it. There's a time and place, absolutely. But when we're getting in touch with our body's natural system and trying to listen to that, learn the vocabulary of when it's telling us something before it really turns into something much greater and manifest in the physical realm. there are these subtleties that we could start to pick up on. And I think, these alternative means of medicine and natural forms of medicine, even food as medicine, are all tools that we have to work with that. Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with your client base in regards to that? What's their responsibility as a patient? And because I think that's always interesting as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting when my clients come to me, they're actually really excited about the combination of utilizing both nutrition management and cannabis therapy to tackle whatever health problem that they're working with. And we find that they actually pair beautifully together and get amazing results for people. So when clients come to me, I typically work with folks with autoimmune or inflammatory conditions perpetuated by constant inflammation. And so what we do is we'll work through our nutrition protocols first, and it's different for everybody. There's no one set diet. And then we'll layer on our cannabis protocols, and that kind of will take the edge off if there is any remaining inflammation and really help to kind of just make that holistic approach. And so it's really exciting to be able to combine both to get people better results.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Wow, we have more people signing on from Nevada, Long Island, Little Rock, Arkansas. Cool. Keep it coming, everyone. Florida. So let's get into, the stress and anxiety, I guess, is a good place to start, because we are in such a state of uncertainty, and it's definitely bubbling up for people. We don't know what things are going to look like. We're not able to engage and interact in the same way. What have you seen there, and what do you think some of those tools are we could use to work on that?
Yeah, so it's definitely the uncertainty that seems to be the most unsettling for people. We're kind of in our new normal. We're about 2 months into this, but we still don't know what's going to happen next. It's that constant cliffhanger and that constant feeling of, I don't know what my future is going to look like. And that's really hard for a lot of people. And so in working with my clients, we focus on the things that we can control. We can't control when the country's going to open back up. We can't control when we're going to have access to a vaccine. The only things we can control are our day-to-day activities and whether or not those are promoting our health and those are healthy, sustainable behaviors. And so really starting small and then working your way outside to more behaviors that you can add on naturally really seems to be the key for most people, because right now, starting any kind of big new change, diet change or lifestyle change isn't sustainable and can actually contribute further to anxiety.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And so I like this approach of doing things really kind of slowly and incrementally. I mean, we approach the same thing even when working with CBD, because one of the most common questions we get is, well, all right, what dosage is it? How should I take it? And it's really a matter of, start small and start slow. And, listen to that conversation with the body when it starts telling you something. And, I think one of my favorite tools through these times and any times of stress is really, coming back to the breath as we're, tensing up and feeling that fight or flight state. How do we just return back to that breath, deepen it, make sure that we're exhaling longer than our inhale and getting all that CO2 out there, especially when we're wearing masks at time and all this other nonsense that's just trapping more of that. But I think these little simple tools are really what it's all about, and just building a collection of them and don't try to do it all at once is really some great advice, I think.
And I feel like we get bombarded by wellness culture to tell us we should be doing it all at once. Use this time to get your summer body or to completely overhaul your lifestyle. And that's just so not sustainable for so many people right now, that any little positive change you make, no matter how small, should absolutely be celebrated.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that most people are eating a lot of their meals home cooked versus ordering in or going out like we might be used to in our busy lifestyles. And it's one of the things I've been loving is just home cooked meals, really knowing what goes into and keeping it clean. So that alone for me I felt the difference and just felt cleaner as a result. So
I've had so many clients say to me that they've been forced to learn how to cook. So it's actually been a really good thing. It's surprising how many people in our traditional busy culture don't spend a lot of time cooking or don't even know how to cook. So it's been a really great thing for a lot of people, learning how to cook and returning to those family meals as well.
I agree. It's these simple things. My wife's been doing a weekly call with my sister-in-law who's Indian, and she has amazing Indian recipes that she's teaching her. So, we're getting these different types of cuisine made at home where, we're typically not doing that. So, yeah, I mean, it's so nice. And then like my grandparents sharing recipes that, again, we just didn't have time for.
Yeah.
So I think, this notion of slowing down is definitely important. And segueing that into, that stress and anxiety and how we could work with CBD and cannabis to help with that. My main framing around it is that we spend so much of our day-to-day in this fight or flight state where we're in that, sympathetic nervous system state where the body is pumped full of chemicals that like adrenaline and cortisol, and those things wreak havoc on the body over time. They mess with our sleep cycles, and so the more we can come back to that homeostasis where the body is operating at its best, the healthier it is, and the more that the body can naturally regulate these other things going on. Do you agree with this? Do you have anything?
Absolutely. It's so spot on. And that's why I'm excited that as your education continues and as we continue to get more cannabis education out there, that people will begin to understand and respect their endocannabinoid system and the role that it plays in homeostasis.
Yeah, and this is something, I don't know, for all of you out there listening, how familiar you are with the endocannabinoid system, right? CBD is all the buzz and everyone hears about, CBD is this, that, it's a wonder, plant. But I think the more amazing thing is understanding a little bit about how it works. Our body has this natural endocannabinoid system, which has been long forgotten. I mean, the ancient Chinese, knew about this, and it was an integral part of their medicine philosophy. Just back in the 90s, it started to come back to the forefront here, and it's still just tip of the iceberg. But Emily, I'll let you touch on, some of the, roles and responsibilities of the endocannabinoid system, and then I could talk more to some of the CBD stuff.
Well, I'm really excited to just start introducing it to people. So going even back to just anxiety, so many people wonder, why do I have this anxiety, and really internalize it and blame it on themselves for not being able to process their inputs. But I find that when people understand that they have an endocannabinoid system and it plays such a big role, it almost kind of alleviates the stress of feeling like it's your fault. And it helps people to understand that they do have more control over their anxiety and their overall homeostasis when they can understand that they have an endocannabinoid system and an endocannabinoid tone, and that their choice in cannabis intake can affect that. And I find it's kind of like knowing about our immune system. Once we know about it, we can take better care of it. And so once people are like, wow, I didn't even know I had an endocannabinoid system, but now I can begin to understand why CBD or any form of cannabis is working so well and helping me to feel so much better.
Yeah, I love that. And so endocannabinoid system is also referred to as the ECS. So you can just go by that, since it's a clunky mouthful, the endocannabinoid system is responsible for taking us out of that fight or flight mode and back into homeostasis, where the body is in its optimal state. It's able to send resources to recovering. It's not worried about surviving anymore. And so it's very primal, very simple. And by the way, all living creatures out there have an endocannabinoid system. I mean, this is from animals to insects and everything in between. So it's really cool. And I like to think of the fact that we have evolved biologically side by side with these. And so there has been this conversation going on between us and these plants for a very long time. And so it's a very natural and easy way to work with. So more about how the CBD works with the endocannabinoid system, it produces CB1 and CB2 receptors, and this stimulates the production of our body's own endocannabinoid receptors. And what this does is it allows it to then regulate the things it's meant to. And so this could be about getting back to a sleep cycle. It could be about turning off that nervous system. It's about definitely dropping inflammation. Inflammation is a huge contributor to so much illness. And so being able to regulate that inflammation right off the bat is a huge one where you really start seeing. But, you know, my experience when I use CBD is, it's interesting. I almost feel like it's like a big sigh. I just feel like, I drop in. It's not like, you know, I look, when I was younger, I dealt with and struggled with anxiety, and I tried all different, you know, techniques and modalities and even medications for it. And like, it's not like a Xanax thing where you feel this fog go over things. It actually sharpens cognitive function. I'd love to hear, Emily, what your, you know, experience has been with CBD and how you feel it working.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And one of the things I often say to my clients is CBD is not about what you feel, it's about what you don't feel. So it's not like you necessarily take it and feel awesome and amazing, but you realize that the things that were bothering you beneath the surface kind of tend to disappear almost. And it's not always sudden, it's not always in your face, but over time you start to realize, wow, I'm sleeping better. Wow, I feel better. Wow, I react differently. My reaction time is slower. I'm calmer, I'm more patient. And so I always say it's not necessarily about what you're feeling, but more so what you're not feeling.
I love that. I love that approach to it. And it, you know, reminds me on my own journey. I remember when one of the things I started doing to try to overcome my anxiety was public speaking. And so I was doing a lot of these public speaking groups and engagements, and I started to listen more. And again, it's, you know, exactly what you're saying, those subtle things going on where I was noticing what I was feeling and how I responded to what I was feeling. And so when my anxiety came up, there was part of me that was like telling it to shut up and like pushing it down and just trying to bottle it up. And that just created more of a turbulence and more anxiety for me. And so somebody, a coach I was working with, recommended like, hey, did you ever actually, you know, like ask what it's trying to do? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Ask it, you know, like back then it didn't make any sense. But when I tried it next time and kind of just used that inquisition, I got a totally different response. I had a dialogue with my body. And so I understood that this was an old program that served me at some point in life. And while I didn't know when it started or why or when it stopped, I knew it wasn't serving anymore. And so as I started creating comfort there, I was then able to start controlling my breath and using other things to help me to naturally calm down. So, you know, again, these subtleties, and I use some of those same tips and tools with CBD. You know, even just trying to do some calm breathing when I use CBD, it's really interesting to just tune in and see how the effects start to work. But yeah, so I mean, these are just some, you know, personal ways that I've played with it. I guess, how about I'll go over some of the, you know, there's so many questions around CBD, the different uses of it and the different processes to get it. You know, my mission here is to empower people to take control of their own health. And, you know, we believe at Eaton Hemp that the more informed people are, the better a decision they could make. So I'll give a little overview of what our approach is there. And, you know, there are many approaches. You've got to ultimately decide what works best for you and what format works best for you. But let's look at some of those. Sorry, I was just seeing some questions. Okay, yeah, and we'll get into some of these in a little bit. Andrea, great question. Joseph, Marty, Jerry, I see all of those, and we'll come back to them. But first, let's talk about, you know, one of the things that we waited for a while before we brought a line of CBD products to the market. And what we were waiting for was USDA Organic to begin certifying. I don't believe that USDA Organic is always the be-all, end-all, and that once you see the mark that you don't have to think about anything else. But in the circumstance with CBD, hemp is a very unique and special plant. And one of the things it is a phytoremediation plant. So that means that it will pull from the soil both the good and the bad. It'll help restore the soil to its natural, healthy place. But if there are toxins in the soil, it's drawing that up into the plant, and that, when it gets extracted, can end up in the CBD itself. And so USDA Organic ensures that there are none of those harmful chemicals or fertilizers or anything else that's going to end up in the product. So that was one that was really meaningful for us. It's the analogy I always use. It's like kind of like going to a juice bar and getting a non-organic juice. You're kind of getting a concentrated dose of whatever fertilizers or chemicals they're using on it. But then there's a bunch of different varieties of hemp out there. And so you may or may not have heard of full spectrum, broad spectrum, and then isolate. And so I'll just give a quick top view of what those are so everybody understands that. When we're talking about full spectrum, that means that the plant goes through an extraction process where the CBD is taken out. And inside of that extraction, there's also a full spectrum of cannabinoids and terpenes. So CBD is, in the cannabinoid family. There's also other cannabinoids that are really amazing. The way that these different cannabinoids and terpenes work together in the industry is called the entourage effect. And the basic idea there is that the sum is far greater than the individual parts. We don't necessarily understand all of that complexity and nuance of how they're working with each other, but there's a lot going on there. And so we opt for full spectrum. And our approach is always, how do we keep the integrity of the plant as much intact as possible? Then you have broad spectrum. What broad spectrum does is broad spectrum filters out any of the remaining THC. Now, by law, CBD has less than 0.3% THC. So you're not going to get high from it. In most cases, you're not going to pass a drug test from it. But for those who are in a very, very strict drug testing environment, this could be people that are in government or even in some medical fields. Some athletes, although we've had professional athletes using our product for a long time and hasn't been an issue, but, research that, check for yourselves. The broad spectrum removes all traces of THC so that you're very confident you're never going to have any issue there. Again, most of the time you'll not have any issue, but check into, where you're having to get tested, ask them about it, just be informed and make sure that you have the right option for you. Then the next option is isolate. Isolate is where they take that same plant and in a lab, they're isolating the CBD component. And so that's isolating one individual part. Think of it as taking a vitamin C pill versus eating a whole orange. There is some effectiveness, but my philosophy is always that the whole plant nutrition is far greater. Emily, I'm curious of what your thoughts are on this topic. Yeah. And so again, people, should explore for themselves, try out different products. The good thing is, when you're dealing with something that's like in the homeopathic realm, you're not going to have issues with trying different products and taking too much and stuff like that. It's going to work with your body naturally, and you'll just see how it affects you. Everyone also has their own unique chemistry and endocannabinoid system, which has its own chemistry. So listen to your individual body and experience as you go through that. Emily, anything else you want to add on to that topic?
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Everything you said is perfect. And it really just goes to show that each and every one of us reacts to cannabis very differently, CBD or THC. I saw someone in the comments say they can't tolerate THC. All of our endocannabinoid systems are so different that we shouldn't expect to all feel the same. We will never feel the same. And it's totally okay. If you're more sensitive to something than someone else, it's normal.
And at different times in our life, things change too. Yep. Like when I was younger, I smoked a lot of cannabis. Mm-hmm. As I got into early adulthood, it just started not working for me. I would, just get in my head, and it just didn't give me that freedom that I loved about it when I was younger. So for me, THC doesn't work. I've gone back and I experiment and I try once, every couple of years, and it's just not there for me right now. And that's okay. But I will say I use the full spectrum products and never have any issues with the, THC from that. So if that's any, consolation to folks. Another important thing to look at when you're looking at CBD products are the oils or tinctures are the most popular form, and those are usually a dropper bottle. They might come in different doses and strengths. We have a regular strength and an extra strength. I could talk through some of the dosing afterwards. But one other thing to note is, the amount of CBD that's in here is quite small. The rest of it is a carrier oil. The carrier oil's job is to bring that CBD, carry it into the bloodstream. And there are different carrier oils that different companies use. There's MCT oil, which is derived from coconut. There's olive oil. We use hemp seed oil. Again, our approach is keep it in the family if we could be within that cannabis and hemp family. So we grow our own hemp seeds, and which don't have cannabis in them. Don't have CBD in it or THC. We press those just like you do olives with olive oil, and that hemp seed oil is what we use here. Again, gets just more of that entourage effect from it. And, the other thing I love about it, I live a vegan lifestyle, and the hemp seed oil is one of, if not the only, alternative to fish oil. It's got a perfect balance of omega 3 to 6 ratio. So that's another thing I really love. Again, helps with inflammation and good for joint support and all that good stuff. But again, try out different ones, see which ones you prefer. There's also stuff out there that you'll find that's flavored, like coffee flavored or berry flavored. At Eaton Hemp, that's not our bag. If that's your thing, go for it. But we really treat the food as medicine. And so, when you taste the product, you taste the plant in there. I really love that flavor, actually. And if you're into cannabis at all, CBD and hemp have the same flavor and aroma and taste as cannabis does. So it's a nice lemony kind of citrusy thing going on. But I think the next thing to touch on is the different formats of using CBD. So you have your tinctures, the oils. The way you take those is there's a dropper in here. Actually, this one's not open. Let me grab an open one so you can see. Sorry for those of you who are familiar, and this is, obvious, but, I know a lot of people are just experimenting or considering. So there's a dropper in here, you squeeze it, and the good thing about this is there's a graduated measurement on here. So I don't know if you guys can see, but it shows you how many milliliters you're taking up so that you can gauge how much it is. I would say with the dosing, generally pay attention to how much is going to be in the bottle or the ounce. But it's really a matter of starting small and just gauging your response. So it's more important that you're aware of how much you took last time and how you responded, so you can deal with that and fluctuate it as you're exploring more. Things about oil, you take it sublingually, so you put it under your tongue, hold it there for 30 to 60 seconds. Emily, do you want to talk about any of the science of why we do that?
Sure. So we do that. We have our mucous membrane. And so what happens is our CBD is more easily absorbed into the bloodstream. And we love it because we see quite a high bioavailability of around 30%, which is higher than we would see with edible or if you were just to swallow it. So that's really a preferred method for a lot of people because it just gets it in. And then our onset time is pretty quick. It's about 30 minutes compared to eating. It's pretty effective for people. So it's kind of like a middle of the road, and it's a safe place to start.
I love it. You've got this now. So you want to take us to where do you want to go next as far as different products and bioavailability?
Let's go to inhalables because you've got those amazing pre-rolls. Yeah. And so this is the most traditional way that people consume CBD traditionally cannabis. I feel like CBD pre-rolls are pretty new to people, and people are like, this is awesome to try. So it looks like regular traditional cannabis joint, smells like it. The only thing is it's a chemical difference and contains that less than 0.3% THC, but it's our quickest bioavailability. It's our highest bioavailability. So we've got 31% bioavailability, and then that quick onset time is about 1 to 3 minutes. So you're going to see your relief immediately within the product.
Yeah, that's been my experience. And you know, I only take 1 or 2 puffs of it, but you immediately just feel this kind of gentle rush over the body where it's like, ah. So I love that.
Relaxing feeling, and you feel it right away.
Yeah, a lot of people that we hear success stories with are folks that have chronic pain issues, either injuries or they're dealing just with breakdown of wear and tear or aging, and then also for sleep. And we have 2 SKUs, just so you know. There's an uptime and a downtime, which are pretty, self-explanatory. Uptime is more of an energetic and kind of creative energy to it. Downtime is definitely more grounded and good if you're looking to calm down after a long day of work, or even if you want to go to bed. So yeah, let's just quickly touch on the topical next. And then we'll get into questions. I know we have a lot of good ones here.
We do. Topicals are great. So we see that when we smoke, or if we were to use a tincture, we get what we call a systemic effect or a full body effect. When we use topicals, meaning directly on our skin, we get a localized effect. So that CBD will interact with our cannabinoid receptors where they are, where it's applied on the skin. So for my folks with rheumatoid arthritis, this is one of their preferred methods because they can put CBD on the skin directly where the pain is. We also see a lot of interest in topicals with THC because we don't tend to see those psychoactive or intoxicating high feelings when THC is applied to the skin. So if we have folks who really are looking to incorporate THC for whatever reason, topicals are a really good, safe place to start because we don't see that super high with it.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Ours comes in, it's kind of like a giant chapstick.
Perfect.
And, a couple of other things we've done was we also infused the carrier oil in birch bark and arnica. And both of those give some added, well, do you want to
pain relief?
You're much more
it's perfect. It's like herbal synergy. You've got all of the different plants that have been traditionally used for hundreds of thousands of years to provide relief, and we're kind of bringing it back to the mainstream and really going back to our roots, so to say.
Yeah, I love that. And there's also a peppermint essential oil. So, build heat, gets more blood to that area, and then also numbs and takes down inflammation. So, it's a great tool to have in the kit. This is one that I always keep on me when I'm out and about. I live a very physical lifestyle, and so I generally have something in that store.
Cut, bruise, scrape, bug bite, a salve goes on it. It works. It works.
Yeah. And so those are, the main forms. You also touched a little bit on edibles, and yes, the fact that their bioavailability is significantly less.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we actually stayed away from the edible formats, just because it's very low availability. Yeah. It's not like, it's interesting. It's while it's in the cannabis family, it's not like THC. When you take THC through the stomach, very different effect, right?
Yes, what most people don't realize is, okay, THC is one thing if you smoke it, but what happens when we eat it, THC gets metabolized through the liver, through what we call the hepatic first pass metabolism. And what happens is we all have our unique enzymes, and the enzymes will break down THC into a new metabolite called 11-OH-THC, which is a very potent, intoxicating, psychoactive metabolite that very readily crosses the blood-brain barrier. So when you hear stories of people saying, I ate a brownie and I hallucinated, or I just had this magnified experience, it's because eating THC is just completely different than using it any other way.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, so that I think gives us a good overview of, different applications that are out there. I say let's take it over to the questions. We have a whole bunch in here. So let's go back when. All right. Jerry Etheridge asks, how do you recognize when you're taking too much CBD?
It's a good question. So I've seen studies showing that 1,500 milligrams per day was well tolerated. So it's super high, but that's super high, and that'd be super expensive if you were taking that much. I would say if you're taking maybe I don't want to put a number on it, but if you're not seeing the results that you're looking for at high doses, I would consider is CBD right for you at this time?
Yeah, I think that's right on. In my personal experience, because that's all I could ever speak to, you know, how have I known when I've taken too much? Because I've really tried to experiment and push the limit so I could understand, you know, and convey. Yeah, one thing I noticed was, you know, I use the I use the regular strength usually like in the morning or during the day. If I have a stressful day, if I'm feeling anxious, you know, I don't necessarily use it every day, but when I'm feeling that, I'll use that. At night, I use the extra strength for going to sleep, and it has done wonders for giving me deep REM sleep. What I did notice, though, is as I started upping dosage at one point, you know, a good healthy place for me is 1 full dropper. And, you know, that's 1 milliliter. Then I started, you know, going up to like 1.5, and then even up to like 1 3/4. When I got up to the 1 3/4 or 2 dropper zone, I still felt fine. Like after I took it, I went right to sleep and slept really solid. But the next morning when I woke up, for about 20 minutes, I felt a little like it was hard to wake up. That shook off, but that told me that in a subtle way, my body didn't need all of that because I was getting, you know, my 8 hours. And so I pulled back, and now like 1 1/4 drops has been like that perfect sweet spot for me. I wake up fully refreshed, fully energized. So in that regard, that's how I knew when it was too much. But, you know, again, I'd say start small, start slow, and experiment. That's the whole thing. Is like be empowered to listen to your body, to try things out. Nothing extreme is going to happen here. So definitely play with that. So let's see. Should we just go up the list here? Marty Talber. Oh, thank you so much. Says that the pre-rolls have helped my wife and myself with pain from surgeries and arthritis. That's so great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. We love hearing, you know, people's results. So yeah, keep that coming, please. Joseph, how long does it take for you to notice a difference? Very good question. Do you want to take that one, Emily?
Sure. I think it's a little bit different for everybody. Again, we all have our unique endocannabinoid systems. Some folks notice right away. They can feel it within 30 minutes. Some folks, it takes a little bit longer. When I'm working with clients who really want to implement it, I ask them to do it for a good 3 weeks consistently to be able to just establish a baseline and really see how it's impacting them.
Yeah, that's the same experience that we've seen with our customers. We're constantly getting feedback and hearing from different folks that are trying it. I agree with that completely. Also, you know, it almost seems like with some people, you need a little bit of this loading dose where there's a week or even 2 weeks where your body is just starting to take it in and recalibrate and starting to work its chemistry back to that state of normal. So it depends on how sensitive you are and also, you know, what state your body is in. I would say just be patient and try it. And, you know, if after a week or 2 weeks you're really not feeling any difference, play with the dosage. Start increasing little by little and see how you respond. Let's see. We have Andrea. Is the treatment for pain from rheumatoid arthritis and pain from a pulled muscle the same? Very good question. Yeah, you want to start on that, Emily?
I would definitely approach them both the same way. I would approach it with a sublingual tincture to get that systemic inflammatory relief, and then I would layer on a topical to get that localized pain relief, either directly where your arthritis is bothering you or directly on the pulled muscle.
I love hearing that personally because that's kind of what I've been doing. I started that way back when I first learned about arnica, and I would take the little pellets and then I would also use the topical. Mm-hmm. And I just love this idea of inside and out. I didn't understand that it was the systemic versus localized like you're explaining so eloquently. Thank you. But, you know, I definitely felt that there was a big effect, and I've done the same thing with CBD. And yeah, I think that works really well. And we have a lot of people with arthritis that are using it and just have tried a lot of different either shots or medications, and we're just kind of fed up and have seen great results. So I invite people to try that as much as possible. And I just want to say, again, my goal is to get people to really be empowered to take control of their health. One of the things that, I try to do is lower barrier for people to be able to try these products. We're going to offer a 30-day money-back guarantee for any of the products you buy. So, I know CBD it's an expensive product. There's a very big process and cost that goes into it. And so it could be a little tough to overcome for some people. So know that if you try it and for any reason, if you're not happy with it, we will refund your money. I think the most important thing is play, explore, be curious about your body and how it's talking to you and see what works. All right, let's take it back to the question boards because we have some great questions here. All right, Teresa Klein, I began to use CBD for anxiety and restless legs. I found I cannot tolerate THC though. It causes paranoia and I hallucinate. Very, very cool to hear. Yeah, some of the different, things you're using it for. I'm curious, Teresa, if you want to chime in, did you have positive effects with the restless legs and the anxiety when you were using it? And also, what method were you using that the THC was, still getting activated in you?
One thing to note, too, is sometimes if folks have too much THC or having a bad experience with THC, sometimes CBD can help offset that. And taking some CBD oil can actually help people feel a little bit better during that unsavory experience.
Oh, interesting. How does that work?
Well, we know CBD and THC work synergistically together. We just don't exactly know the mechanism now, but we do know that CBD can absolutely help reduce that anxiety and paranoia it's pretty normal, to be honest. Most people struggle with finding the right dose of THC for themselves, and it's very unique for each person. And if you have too much, that's generally what happens. So it's normal and it's fine. And again, it's all about experimenting and getting to know what your body likes and tolerates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Teresa says that she she gets lots of relief and she uses oils.
Perfect.
Great. Yeah. And so for you, I would say try some different products out there because there's also nuance in the legality around THC. The technical legality is it has to be 0.3% of delta 9 THC, which, that's one of the types of THC. There's a whole profile of THC that is also in there that can be higher. And so depending on the individual body, would you agree that you could respond to that differently?
Absolutely, especially with what we know with THCA and that it can be readily decarboxylated into THC at any point. We all just react differently to THC. It seems to be the most variable for people, and it's the one we notice the effect with the most because it's the one that does have intoxicating properties.
Yeah, so Teresa, I would say if you haven't already, explore a few different brands and see if there's one that works better for you. See if it's outright full spectrum that you're just so sensitive you feel it. Then that's not the option for you. Then probably go with a broad spectrum or even an isolate. But yeah, definitely explore and see what works best. But I'm glad it's helping with the larger issues you have there. Okay, so let's go to another, and feel free, Emily, if you want to pull out any specific question that you see here.
Perfect. So I see Sheila has the bath bombs. They're becoming so popular because we're kind of magnifying that topical effect because it's touching our whole bodies. So it's essentially systemic, but it's topical relief. And a lot of my clients, especially folks with fibromyalgia and whole body pain, really see a lot of relief from the CBD bath bombs. And obviously, the longer you stay in there, the more likely you are to see the relief.
Love that. And yeah, we are working on a line of bath bombs because we've seen great results there. And again, I think so much of this, the other thing I really like about that is it helps the body to just chill the F out. And that's what
you're combining two self-care rituals in one, making it easier for people.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, be on the lookout. We're working on a line of those bath bombs, also on a line of lotion, because I do think, yeah, the skin as an organ is an incredible thing.
Exciting.
And yeah, so very cool. Let's see what else we have here. Andrea says, should we be concerned with inhalants at this time with COVID and related respiratory issues? I would say,
that's a great question.
Yeah, it's a very great and very timely question. And we've touched on this one with, some folks, and I'd love to hear your take on it. In general, yeah, look, smoking anything, while this isn't like smoking cigarettes and it's not even like smoking a joint of marijuana, you're typically only taking 1 or 2 puffs. But if you have any pre-existing conditions, yeah, you don't want to do anything that's going to potentially put your respiratory system or your immune system at risk. Even taking a puff or 2 is going to, paralyze those cilia, those little hairs in your lungs for a little bit. But so I would stay away from it if you have any issues. If you don't have any issues and this is your preferred method, and because of your condition, that's what you feel is best for you, try it. Try it with 1 puff. But again, be very mindful and respect, respect this this virus, and don't do anything that's going to put yourself at further risk. Emily, what do you have to add on that one?
Perfectly well said. And I find that smoking becomes more of a personal decision for a lot of people, whether or not they decide they want to inhale something or not. And it's really just a personal check-in with yourself. And does this support my overall well-being? If it helps manage your anxiety, then maybe it's a great option for you. If you have more anxiety about thinking about smoking during the pandemic, maybe just try another application method.
Love it. Yeah, again, I mean, bring that, curiosity and experimentation to this whole process and into your health and wellness approach in general. Joelle, thank you. Eaton Salve was a lifesaver when I banged up my knee really bad. Pain quickly disappeared and bruise vanished in a few days. Love that. Yeah, and the arnica that's in here as well also helps with bruising, so that only gives that added little benefit. Love to hear it. Jen is asking, where can I get these products? So if you go, we're going to give a link in a little bit, but if you go to EatonHempCBD.com, you can get the products there. And if you hang on just a little bit, we're also going to give you a little discount code because, again, I want as many people to try this as possible. And on top of that, we're also going to do our giveaway, so that some lucky one of you is going to get some product to take home with you. So virtually take home with you, of course. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Emily, where do you want to go?
Teresa says, can CBD help bring down inflammation in the lungs due to asthma, which I find very interesting. So no scientific data to support this at all, and just claiming anecdotally, I continue to have people say that they have asthma despite better thoughts, continue to smoke, and claim that it helps the inflammation. Again, completely anecdotal, but I have continued to hear that from people. If it was me as a healthcare practitioner making a recommendation, I would recommend more of that tincture, that systemic way to bring down the inflammation, because simply we just don't know enough about inhalants and whether or not it does help the inflammation in the lungs. But I continue to see people say that it does, which I find interesting, and I hope will drive studies in the future to examine this a little bit closer.
Yeah, one of the things I haven't even thought about in this capacity, but one of the things it reminds me of is, I like to go on treks, and I'll go to a very high altitude. And one of the games you're playing is, you have much less oxygen in the every breath that you're taking. So how do you increase the absorption of oxygen throughout the body? And I'll say that one of the enemies there is definitely inflammation. So if you're fighting inflammation, you're not going to have that constriction. Your blood's going to flow better. I'd imagine that it's going to lead to absorbing more oxygen in general. Again, this is no science whatsoever, so you probably should take it with a grain. But Very interesting question. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to see studies done around that in the future. All right, let's see what else we have here. Lynn, is it best to take CBD with food or on an empty stomach?
I always suggest however you can remember to take it or whatever fits in your current lifestyle. It's a little bit better with food because we see it absorbed again with what we're eating, and we know that it's better. CBD is better absorbed with lipids, but then again, it's paired with the carrier oil as it is. So when you're consuming it, we have the hemp seed oil in there already to help facilitate that. So I really come down to client preference, whatever it takes to get it in.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things to note there too is it's not like a pill where you're taking it and it's going into your stomach to really start dissolving. This is something that sublingually is going to give you that biggest impact. So yeah, I haven't heard of people saying that they've ever gotten an upset stomach from it. So from that perspective, I don't think there's much concern. But again, listen to your body, and I love that notion of whatever helps you to remember, take it best.
We know life is so hard as it is. It's hard enough to remember to take our vitamins, whatever gets it in.
Yes. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? This one is above my pay grade, but I don't know if you have any response to Jerry Etheridge's question. Have there been any studies that rule out the possibility that CBD causes liver toxicity with long-term use?
So I know what study you're talking about. I haven't seen any studies that rule it out at this time. So the study that we're looking at now is because the FDA has allowed CBD to be the active drug in Epidiolex when they were running their long-term clinical trials. They were taking insanely high amounts of CBD per day that showed that liver toxicity. So the validity of the study in and of itself is questioned. I haven't seen anything to come rule it out yet, but I have seen a lot of people pointing out the fact that the amount of CBD that was used in this study makes it not as much as a cause for concern as people originally made it out to be.
And do you know, was it isolate that was used in that study?
I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say it was. I believe that it was isolate because they're using that synthetic cannabinoids. They're not using a full plant extract. I would assume it'd have to be an isolate, and I would assume that it was more than anyone could even afford to take in a day.
Right. Yeah, so it's interesting when you start looking at these things, and also, again, that's where I go back to how do we keep the integrity of a plant intact. It has all the parts that are needed to break it down and use it when you have that whole plant nutrition. I'd be curious and I'm going to look into that. But thanks, Jerry, for bringing that to the forefront. And yeah, I mean, look, it's always good to be looking at these. But again, my notion is we've evolved alongside of these plants for a very long time, and so that intuitively tells me that there's a relationship there, and if used within reason,
right.
It's healthy. Okay, so let's see what else we have. You want to pull one out of here, Emily?
Sure. Marika says, what is the best product to try for workout recovery and reduce inflammation? So I'm going back to our tincture, our systemic full body. So if depending on your workout and what areas you're targeting, you're probably still going to be using multiple muscles and multiple muscle groups. So using that tincture to get that systemic, but then if you feel like a specific muscle that needs a little love, go ahead and give it a little topical love as well.
Yeah, I had both of those in my hand and thinking the exact same thing. I was watching a great video. I forget who it was by, but they were talking about, this relationship with bodybuilders and fitness and how the best ones are just totally chilled out. Like they're just very Zen people. And there's this connection there that when you're in this state, when you're in this parasympathetic state, you're not in fight or flight. Your body is able to recover. It's able to repair muscles. It's able to, give everything that the body naturally needs. And so the fact that the tincture globally allows the body to do that, I think is just a huge asset. So yeah, I take it after a good workout and love that. All right, so let's see. What else do we have?
Marty says, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go on. I think this might be one of our last questions.
Marty says we inhale it with a small amount of THC added, and it definitely releases the pain. I did want to mention one thing I do see with clients is oftentimes that severe chronic pain sometimes needs a little bit of THC to touch it. So I'm glad you put that out there, Marty. Not a lot, but it definitely needs either that full spectrum or maybe more of like a 1-to-1 ratio for that severe pain.
Love that. Well, yeah, let's bring this back. I want to, thank all of you for joining us here today. And, again, I want to make it as easy for everyone to, try any CBD products, also our product. I believe strongly in the level of quality of what we've put out there in the market. But I hope the information has given you some more confidence to navigate the space and to try products that, might be best for you. But again, we're giving a 30-day money-back guarantee for any products that you get from Eaton Hemp. And we're also going to give a discount code. We're going to do 20% off. And you could use the code Emily20. That's EMILY 20. And give it a try. And, really curious to hear what people have to think. So, pick some up. If you have any additional questions, reach out to us. And also, any other questions, that you want to share with us or any results you want to share with us, please. We love being in touch with people who are using the product and trying it. It helps to inform us and how we, develop the next generation of our product. So please. I see an important question that just had popped up. Thanks, Finn, for bringing this to the forefront. Emily, I think this is for you. Chris asked, can you take CBD with an antidepressant?
So this is where I strongly recommend you having a really candid and honest conversation with your primary care physician. Certain physicians are like, yeah, absolutely, give it a try. And some physicians are like, absolutely not. And when we look at something like depression, we want to be as careful as possible and as informed as possible. And I also say, if your physician is not willing to talk to you about it, maybe it's time to find a new physician and find a healthcare provider who is willing to work with you in what you're looking to explore, because it's absolutely a viable option. We just want to make sure you're doing it the safest way possible.
I love that. Yeah. And again, with our healthcare practitioners, we want to make sure that we have one that's aligned with us, who's open to other modalities like we are. And, I think the more that we become active participants in our health and wellness, the more we can engage that dialogue with them. Or we might learn that, this doesn't necessarily feel like the best match, and maybe I should start talking to other folks. And look for that partnership. That's what Hippocrates founded the modern approach to medicine with that concept in mind. You were coming to the table with information about your body and your experience, and that should be there. We're not going to a mechanic.
Exactly. And healthcare, once you find a good doctor for you, you are set for life. I just feel like it is worth shopping around a little bit if you're not 100% satisfied, because for every healthcare provider out there that might not be great, there is an awesome one out there who is willing to help you in the way you want to be helped.
Love it. Well, it looks like Finn in the background has started off our drawing for the free pre-roll products. So, he has asked everyone to enter your favorite number from 1 to 10 into the chat box. So get that going.
Yay.
All right, let's see. We got them coming in. All right. I think he says we have a winner. I'm just getting a live text from him on that. So give me one sec. All right. And he just told me we have a tie. So we have two winners we're going to pick, rather. So we have, drum roll, please. All right, Jen is our first winner. Congratulations, Jen. And then for our second winner, drum roll again, Denise. Denise is our second winner. So Finn will be in touch with you to get your information so we could send that out to you. Let me find out exactly what we're sending. All right. Well, awesome. Thanks, everyone, so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope that, Emily, you did as well. I'm so happy to have your knowledge and experience in helping to shed light. I know I learned a bunch on this, so thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for putting the education at the forefront. I think that's the greatest thing you do.
Yes, absolutely. That's something that we're big proponents of. So again, keep reaching out, ask us questions, send us follow-up. We want to hear what you think and what you want. And just so you know, all right, we're going bigger on this. We're going to do our combo packs, 3 of each type of the pre-rolls for Denise and Jen. So you each have 6 pre-rolls coming your way. Enjoy, share with some friends and family, responsibly, of course. And have a great weekend, and please stay healthy and safe out there. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.